Welcome to Homeschool Your Way. I'm your host, Janna Cook, and Bookshark's community manager. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about motivations, not the kind that make you feel bad because you haven't been to the gym lately, or you had that extra handful of M&Ms last night. It's a type of motivation that's going to help you homeschool your children better. My guest today is Jimmie Quick. She works in marketing for Motivations AI, and we're specifically going to be talking about a product called TruSpark. Jimmie, thanks so much for being here.
Oh, it's great to be with you today, Jana, and catch up a little bit, talk about TruSpark.
For those of you who don't know or may wonder why Jimmie and I are so familiar, but we have worked together for a number of years. And so it's exciting to talk about this new product that she has been marketing and to give you guys some insight into what I learned about myself taking the test and how I believe it's going to help me motivate my children in ways I never knew possible. So Jimmie, first, a quick introduction of how you became involved in the homeschool world.
I originally was a public school teacher. I taught middle school for about 7 years. I taught English and I loved it. And I never thought that I would homeschool. I knew what homeschooling was, but just wasn't on my radar at all. But turns out I moved abroad and lived abroad for 8 years. And during that time, my daughter came of kindergarten age. And I realized that homeschooling was really the best option for her. Going to an international school or a local school really wasn't a good fit. So we started homeschooling and I loved it. And she really thrived. And it turns out that not only did our living situation dictate homeschooling, but we were a perfect fit for homeschooling. My daughter is incredibly creative and a little bit on the sensitive side. She's very much an outside the box thinker, and homeschooling just really gave her the freedom to thrive. With us setting the pace and us setting the subject matter. So it was a great situation. I look very fondly back on those years. My daughter is now an adult. She's independent. She lives on her own in another state. I'm very proud of her.
Now, being classically trained in education, did you feel like that hindered your homeschool experience or your desire to homeschool, or do you think that it helped you as you went along?
I think it was a double-edged sword. I think it gave me a lot of confidence, and I lived in a country where homeschooling wasn't a thing. There wasn't even a word for it. So I would say homeschool, and then I would have to define what I meant, and then I would have to say it like three different ways so people could understand what I meant. And I would often say, "Oh, I'm a teacher, so I know what I'm doing." And that would reassure people so that they could accept that we were homeschoolers. It lended a bit of credibility to my role. Obviously, you don't have to be a certified teacher to homeschool, but in that setting, it really helped alleviate people's fears that, oh, she knows what she's doing. Oddly enough, because I was a secondary teacher, this is so funny when I think about it now. I was terrified about teaching my daughter to read, which I think now is just absolutely hilarious because it's not that hard, but somehow um, it had been mystified to me as if it was a very difficult and earth-shattering thing. And if you don't get it right, everything's ruined. And actually, it was not that difficult, and it was very enjoyable, and it was something I got worked up about for absolutely nothing.
I know that you are not the only homeschool parent that is worked up about those very things. I had a relief in the sense that I was like, I didn't have to teach my children how to read. But over the years of homeschooling, it's like, well, I've taught them all the other important things. And it was just a natural process, talking and walking and interacting
Mhm.
with people. And so to demystify this idea that there are certain things that we are incapable of teaching our children is such a myth. And I'm so glad that we can shed light on the subject that, and you have so many tools now that can help you reach your child, even if something does become more difficult for you and it maybe was less difficult for a friend of yours.
So true.
So you homeschooled through high school, correct?
Mhm.
Now, that in and of itself is a feat that not all of us homeschool parents have decided to take on. I myself was homeschooled through high school, and my youngest is entering her freshman year of high school, and we are going to homeschool. So I didn't homeschool my oldest two as they went into high school. So, this idea of thinking about teenagers and maybe not even just an age range, but more of a personality. There are definitely some children that are harder to motivate and get buy-in into the things that we need to accomplish as parents, let alone homeschooling parents, just parenting in general. So when you think about motivating teenagers or strong-willed children, it's definitely slightly, I don't know what would be the word. Like I kind of get scared. I had one daughter that people were like, "Are you afraid of her?" And I was like, "A little bit." Oh, I am a little bit afraid of
Mhm.
her.
Here's a quote I just read recently from James Clear, and I think it is just a great encapsulation of what we're going to talk about today. Excitement is a better motivator than discipline. It's that old adage of the carrot or the stick. And sometimes as parents, we have to use the stick. But the carrot is so much more appealing for everybody. As a parent, the carrot is much more enjoyable. We don't like getting the stick out. It's terrible when we have to do that. So excitement is a much better motivator than discipline. So anytime we can structure our day or our homeschool to leverage excitement, natural innate motivations, we are all going to be happier. The tone in the home is going to be more peaceful, more joyful. Yes, when kids start to reach middle school ages, it's perfectly developmentally correct for them to start pushing back on boundaries, for them to question why, and tell me, why do I need this information, and why are you being so strict with me? This is normal developmental behavior. We need to expect that. It doesn't mean you're a failure. In fact, it means you're a success. Your children are growing into be independent. But it can be hard as a parent to navigate that. And that's what TruSpark was designed for. It's designed for that exact age, for the middle school, maybe as old as a freshman in high school, but those intermediary years that are really kind of awkward, where, as you say, you do get a little scared of your kids because they can be touchy. And if you say the wrong thing, oh boy, it's going to be a bad day because I made so and so angry and now she's pouting and she's fussing at me. So when we learn about our motivations, our own and our children's, it really helps us to smooth out the rough spots of the day.
Personally, I think when I hear the carrot versus the stick, it sounds, yes, 100%. I want to get on board with that. Why does it seem to be so much easier to fall back into the stick versus the carrot? I understand it's human nature, right? Like I can be excited about an exercise regimen and a diet program and I'm all ready to go. My default is not the healthy choices. My default are the unhealthy choices. And I don't think that parenting or homeschooling are any different.
Absolutely. I think the easy answer is it requires more effort and more creativity on our part to stimulate the excitement, to stimulate the motivation. The stick is the stick is the stick is the stick. We just have those few sticks that we go to and they work. Unfortunately, they work. There's a high cost sometimes. We may destroy our relationship with our kids. We may put certain ideas in their head that we really don't want them to have. In other words, like learning is a drag, learning has to be forced upon me, those kind of, misconceptions. But it's easy. We know how to use the stick. If we want to inspire excitement and innate excitement, it requires that we use creativity. So when you give your kids the TruSpark assessment, maybe I should tell a little bit about the assessment. So it's an online app, it's an online assessment. You create an account, you purchase the assessment. It starts with a curriculum that guides the student through what they're going to be doing when they take the assessment. What they're going to be doing is writing some small short stories about a time when they felt really good about themselves, when they achieved something or made a difference, when they felt like they were really proud of themselves. This is a personal value judgment, not when other people are proud of you, but when you are proud of yourself. And it's a short little story, maybe 3 to 5 sentences, just a paragraph. The kids are going to write these stories. And then based on those stories, they're going to work through the app, dragging these cards, whether, yes, this applied to my story, or no, that didn't really apply to my story. And then at the end of the assessment, the tool gives them a report telling them their top 3 core motivations. And you can go to the TruSpark.me website to see all of the 19 motivations that we assign. For example, one of them is a maximizer. You're always looking to find unused areas and bring them to life. There's a teacher, someone who likes to teach other people things. There's a visionary, someone who has these big ideas. There's an improver, someone who's always looking at how to make something better. There's a fixer who actually makes it better. There's an expert, an explorer, an arranger, an achiever. There are 19 of these different motivations. So when your student takes the assessment, they get this report with their 3 top motivations, and you learn more. It goes into more depth about them, defining them. And you even get, as part of your purchase, a document that helps you apply those motivations to your homeschool and to your parenting. It goes a step farther and it takes those motivations and then it guides kids through some career exploration, kind of like TruSpark becomes your guidance counselor. And it says, oh, you are an overcomer, and these kinds of careers really fit well with an overcomer motivation. And then it guides them through some online research, learning about careers. And it can really get kids excited about, oh, this is how I'm wired. And these are jobs that fit with that kind of wiring. So when you learn about your child's motivations, the idea is then, because you're a homeschooler, you have control over how your day is structured, what curriculum you use, what time of day, how, are you doing school on the couch or outside? You have pretty much free reign of everything. When you know your child's motivations, then you can use those to help them learn. Like, for example, here's just a small example. Let's say your child is motivated by improving. Your child is an improver. I'm an improver. I see what's wrong and I want to figure out how to fix it. That's one of my motivations. So it means that I always see the bad thing. I always see what's wrong, but I always have an idea of, oh, if we do it like this, it'll make it better, right? I'm an improver. If your child is an improver, a great activity for learning language arts is to give them those sentences that have mistakes in them and say, find all the problems and fix them. Or give them a math problem that's already worked out and say, is this right or is this wrong? Where did the person go wrong? Find the mistake in this math solution. So using their motivation to approach whatever topic. And there's so many different ways you can do this. And this is why I say it takes creativity. The stick is just do your math problems, right? I'm going to hit you with these scissors, not literally, but figuratively. But the creativity comes into play where you think, okay, my child is an overcomer. How can I make overcoming fit into math? Oh, do I need to come up with some kind of a game, like an obstacle course or something? You have to really get creative. And it does take effort. It's not as easy as the stick, but it is so much more motivating. And it's going to be motivating for you as a parent when you start incorporating these things and you realize, oh, my kid loved math today. My child wasn't crying during the writing lesson today. This was a success. I'm going to keep using these motivations. And the great thing is, once your child is middle schooler, they're old enough to be introspective. You can sit down with the child and say, this shows that you're a finisher. That means you really like to see things through to the end. How could we incorporate that in our homeschool day? And your child may have some great insights like, well, I really want you to give me my sheet every day instead of just giving me bit by bit. I want you to show me the whole outline. I want you to give me, in fact, I want you to give me my whole week's schedule at a time. And I want to mark it off and I want to be able to move ahead if I want to. Let me do that, Mom. I think that would give me a motivation because I'm a finisher. So don't just try to incorporate these motivations. Also talk to your child and get some feedback from them of how you could incorporate these into the way you structure your homeschool day to give them more autonomy and to really make them feel better about what they're doing.
I love these concepts because I think for any parent who has a leaning towards figuring out personalities or love languages or anything like career oriented. We already have that desire. We're excited to see how they fit in. For me, it's almost like we're being creative in figuring out how they fit into boxes, which I mean, it kind of seems counterproductive, but it works. So taking not only what they enjoy, but when you learn those things, you're realizing what motivates me doesn't motivate them. And it's so hard as a parent sometimes to let go of what I think works, what I think is exciting. I have found now, having 3 teenagers in my house, I have to actually ask, do you guys want to do this? When they were little, I just made the plan and everybody just came along, and one was happy, one was grumpy, one didn't care. And I thought that was just personality, and we just did what I thought was the best and we moved on. And now that I have teenagers, I'm like, wait, I'm putting in a lot of effort into this. Is this something you even want to do? When I wasn't doing that, I was spinning my wheels. I was getting frustrated. I wasn't enjoying myself. And I was sad because I thought, this is what we should be doing. And I feel like I hear what you're saying. It's very similar with these motivations. We have chosen to homeschool our children. Hopefully, our children have bought into the idea, or they're still getting used to the idea. But if we can come alongside parents and help them figure out how to have the best experience possible, that's going to be success for, like you said, not only the child, but also the parent.
Absolutely. It's a partnership. And you really nailed it. And as far as knowing yourself, and if parents want to take this test, they can use the TruSpark assessment, but we actually have a version that is for adults, and it's called MCode. So it stands for motivation code. So you can go to motivationcode.com, and as an adult, you can take the full test. So TruSpark is based on the test for the adult, but it's made in a more kid-friendly format. We also have a format of the test called TruMotivate that is for upper high school or college age young adults. So each one is just specially crafted to meet the needs of people at these different age ranges. So you've got TruSpark, you've got TruMotivate, and you've got MCode. Now I know, Janna, you just took MCode, and I know you told me, I hope it's okay if I share this, that one of your motivations is finisher. And as a
Absolutely.
finisher, you like to get things done and you don't like to leave things hanging for too long. So a really long project is going to kind of make you a little anxious. Let's wrap that up. Let's finish that up. Come on, let's get this done. Let's get this done. But maybe finisher is really low in your child's motivations. They don't really care. Maybe for them, they're an explorer and they really like to constantly be learning something new and figuring out something new. They could care less about finishing. Is it wrong to not be motivated by finishing? Certainly not. There are no value judgments in any of the motivations. We're all unique. We're all different. Of course, in life, we all have to finish things. In life, we all have to explore things as well, right? I mean, all of these motivations, we have to operate in them at some time. But how could you let go of your desire to finish and instead go with your child's desire to explore? It's kind of a rhetorical question, but you might actually have thoughts on that.
Well, I've experienced some of that, having 3 daughters, and they're all very different personalities, which I love, and then sometimes don't enjoy 100% of the time. But I had just said to my youngest recently, we had gotten through probably 32 weeks of school, and I said, are we just done with 8th grade? And she said, yeah, I think so. And I was like, okay, realistically, she did enough of the curriculum. She enjoyed it. I didn't have to, I mean, I could have nagged her through this 8 weeks of summer, but what fun would that have been? And she's excited now and ready to start the next level. And I am appalled. But
Because she didn't
she,
finish the curriculum. Is that what
yes,
the hang up?
yes.
Yeah.
Like, but why doesn't that bother you? And
Hmm.
she's like, it doesn't.
Yeah, she's not a finisher. In
Mm-mm.
other words, that doesn't motivate her. She doesn't get a thrill from check, I did it all. It doesn't
Yeah.
thrill her like it thrills you. So we have to be willing. I mean, we don't have to. We can fight, we can push our kids, but it's going to make them miserable. It's going to make them resentful. And really, it's going to make you feel like a terrible parent.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing that I noticed too when I took the test is that it was realize the vision. So I'm not a visionary. I don't necessarily come up with these grand ideas, but if somebody gives me their grand idea, oh, now it's on. Let me see how we can make this a reality. And a very simple example is my daughters are wanting a dress for a certain occasion. I am the mom that will go from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and travel 50 miles if necessary, trying on 500 dresses until they find the right dress. And they're the ones that are like, Mom, it's fine. We don't even care anymore. And I'm like, we got to find it. We got to find it for you. And they were done like 3 hours ago. And then they were like, please let us just go home.
That's another great example. So let's say your child is is it achieve the vision, achieve the vision, or reach
Realize the vision.
realize the vision.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot the word there. So realize the vision, but you're giving them a very open-ended assignment, right? Come up with a science project, and the child feels paralyzed because they're not very good at just coming up with ideas out of the blue. But if you were to give them some structure and say, look, here are 4 ideas, make that come alive, they would just be excited, like, oh, that's a great idea. I can totally imagine how we can do that. Yes, let's go. And they can bring that vision to life. So don't ask kids to do things that, aren't in their wheelhouse. Make it easier for them. Cater to their strengths, cater to their motivation. So I think if you take the TruSpark test, you will get so many insights about your child that you did not have before. And, really hold on to your current concept of your child a little more loosely than you think, right? We know our kids, but there's always more to be learned about our kids.
Well, and we know our kids through our lens, which I think is so interesting. I saw in a recent interaction between a mom and a daughter, and her mom was answering how she thought her daughter would answer. And her daughter stopped her and she was like, "Why do you think that?" And she's like, "Well, I know you." And her daughter was like, "Actually, that's not what I thought." And I was, slightly embarrassed to be involved in the conversation, but at the same time, privileged to see an interaction that probably I've had with my own daughters, that we see our kids through our lens of them, and they have their own lens, and especially as they start to become young adults and independent, and maybe they're mimicking some of the motivations that we have, and they start to realize, okay, I do that because that's our family culture or that's how we've always done it, but that doesn't motivate me. And to have the freedom and to have a structure that comes alongside you and says, okay, maybe it isn't that, it's this. That I'm, super excited about my girls graduating high school and start thinking about college and their careers, and to have a good, clear understanding of what motivates them versus what they think they should do or what they think we think they should do. It can get so complicated, even, no matter what the age of your child is.
Yes, what we at Motivations AI, all of us really love seeing people at whatever age or stage reaching their full potential. You can't reach your full potential if you are being formed in a mold that doesn't fit you. So we as parents need to identify what our children are really about, what they really love, what really motivates them, not shape them in our own image, but really allow them to develop into who they are designed to be. So TruSpark is just a tool to help you get another picture, a fuller picture of who your child is. And it's also at this middle school age, very eye-opening to the child because, kids at this age really start to want to fit in. The peer group becomes very important to them. And again, developmentally appropriate. There's nothing wrong with that. That is natural stage of development. At this stage, in fact, sometimes their peers become overly important, right? They maybe make decisions based on what their peers say instead of maybe, their own values or something like that. When they learn about their motivations, it can really click for them to see, oh, this is how I'm unique. This is how I'm special. This is how I'm gifted, actually. This is my superpower, if you will. And they can lean into that. It can also help kids become an advocate for themselves, right?
Mm.
If they know, I'm really not good at this, but I'm really good at this, then they can go to the person in leadership and say, hey, I know you want me to do this, but could I tweak it a little bit? Could I do it this way? Or could I do it like this? Because that makes me excited when I think about doing it this way. And it would still get done. Would that be okay with you? So they're becoming an advocate for the ways that motivate themselves. And what a life skill. I mean, I'm still using that kind of life skill myself right now in my 50s to take a task that I don't really want to do, but I can flip it and I can make it somehow match with my motivations so that I am more excited to actually do the job. So it's a great life skill. It's really special for kids at the middle school age and even high school age when their identity, finding out who they are, coming up with labels. I know a lot of times we laugh about our Gen Z children and how they have a label for everything. They label everything. They just love labels. Well, you know what? We've all had labels. We had labels when we were teens too. They were just different and maybe a little more limited. But TruSpark is a healthy set of positive labels that your kids can use. There are no negative motivations. Again, they're value free. They are all wonderful aspects of the diversity among humans and all the skills and talents that we bring to the table.
And we are living in an age of innovation. We are talking to parents who chose to get out of the system and do it a different way. Is it no wonder that our children are at that place where they're, if encouraged to think outside the box? I do think it's kind of counterintuitive where as a parent we're thinking outside of the box in areas that we feel safe. But when our children start thinking outside of the box in ways we haven't, we feel threatened. And so I guess there's no shame that when you start to explore this, to know that you're going to be uncomfortable as a parent. I mean, we're probably more uncomfortable as parents than we ever would care to admit. Although I did say to my daughter, I've never been a parent to a 17-year-old. And she said, it's really showing. So, I mean, there's so many things that we just have to get comfortable in the uncomfortable. And I think this is one of those examples because you're going to see that your children are motivated in different ways and you're going to go, well, that I don't understand why or why it shouldn't be that way. So to just embrace that, more than likely you're an outside the box thinker and you're demonstrating to your child to be an outside the box thinker. Now, how can we capitalize on that instead of it creating tension, which I would say I have observed in a lot of homeschool homes and environments, because there's just like, we don't want to do it the way the system tells us to. And then we're raising kids who say, we don't want to do it the way you're telling us to. And that can be a little tricky.
Right, right. We trade one box for another box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do think that because we're homeschool parents, we already feel this heavy burden of proof to society, to whomever that society is in your circle of life, but that we really should just shed that. We don't have to prove anything to anybody. And if we can stop looking outside to what people think about what we're doing and start looking and putting our energy inside into how we can help our children succeed to the best of their ability, I think we can really see a generation come out of this post-COVID homeschooling with just amazing ways to do things differently.
Well, I have an adult daughter now, and I will say, looking at it from this side of the track, people say this, but I think it bears repeating. The most important thing is truly your relationship with your child. You don't want your child to be 24, 25, living in another state, never calls you. They don't want you to be part of their life because you were too rigid when you homeschooled them. It's so important that you keep those lines of communication open, that you give kids autonomy, you give kids freedom, that you listen to them. And TruSpark is just another tool to help you listen to your kids. It opens an avenue of dialogue. Hey, you're an explorer? Wow, I didn't expect that. Do you think that you're an explorer? And the kid says, yeah, I am. And Well, explain that to me. Let's talk about that. How can we put more exploration in our homeschool? It just opens the line of communication. And I think it's the kind of thing that you could revisit quarterly or every year. And as your child grows, they could take TruSpark 1 year and in a couple years have them take TruMotivate, which is at a slightly higher level and revisit and see, do you see consistency over the years? Scientifically, this intellectual property does show consistency over the years, that people will show the same motivations or at least themes of motivation over the years. It's very consistent in life, unlike things like a strengths finders test. Did you know strengths actually are a reflection of what you're currently doing? You might be really strong in a certain task, but you don't really love it.
Mm.
You just can figure it out and do it, but it doesn't give you that zest for life. You don't wake up thinking, I can't wait to do that. Or when you're finished, you don't think, yes, nailed it. You just don't have that feeling. It's kind of flat, but you can do it, and you can do it with excellence. Strengths are not the same as motivations. Strengths are another interesting thing that you can learn about your child, but strengths change over time. If you take a strengths test in your 20s and you compare it to a test in your 40s, you'll be surprised to see, whoa, my strengths are totally different. And you'll realize, oh, yeah, it's because at that phase of my life, I was doing those things. I was having to act in those strengths. And now at this phase in my life, I'm having to show these other strengths. But underlying it all consistently will be your inner core motivations. Regardless of what I'm doing, I'm motivated to achieve or excel or explore or finish or optimize or be a visionary.
I think that's a really good point because your student may really be showing or excelling in, let's say, math, but it's not because they love math. It's something about the math, the challenge or whatever it is, that's actually the part that they're excited about. So sometimes when they hit those adolescent years and their interests change and the parents are like, but wait, you used to love math, you used to be so good at math. And they think that something might be wrong with the child, or, I felt that way. Something must be wrong with me. I get so excited about certain things. And then once I do them, that passion, 100% gone. I mean,
Hmm.
3 weeks ago, I would have, given my life over to this cause or this thing. But once it's accomplished, I'm like, now what? And they're like, but wait, you love that. And I'm like, I did, and it's done. And now I got to find something else to love. Like, I used to think that there was something wrong with my personality, that I must not be, I don't have longevity of things. I don't know. My husband's had the same job for 24 years. I don't understand how. Like that just, I would die inside.
So you like to finish things. So it's really important for you to have an end point so that you can wrap it up. So, knowing that about yourself, it's important that you structure your work in ways that have clear endpoints where you can say, done, check it off, finished product. This chunk is complete. And that gives you that sense of satisfaction.
Yeah. And how amazing would that be to know about my children, right? So whether or not it's the finishing, or they're the type that can create the vision but then have no desire to actually do what the vision is, which
Who are
would
these
drive
people?
me nuts.
Yeah, but a visionary often doesn't have a desire to see it come to reality. They just love the big ideas. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
But if you're not that person, it's hard for you to wrap your head around, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But I can also see how it all works together in community, which is really what it comes down to, right? Like
Yes.
I've always said, you've got to staff to your weakness, right? So if you
Yes.
don't like it, this is a very simple example, but at dinner at night, I have one that doesn't like to be told when exactly she needs to do her task. So her task is always the one that doesn't matter. She can do that at any point up until she goes to bed, even though it
Oh,
drove me nuts. But the other ones, I give them the task that they don't mind doing right away. So I know at least that part of the dishes are done. And it really has eliminated so much strife in our home because I'm like, fine, whatever, do it. It just has to be done at some point. And even so, I still, after all these years, I'll be like, hey, it's almost 9 o'clock. I mean, my dishes still aren't. And she's like, oh, I know. They'll get done. And sure enough, I've never come down in the morning
hmm.
and the dishes weren't done. That is so contrary to my personality and
Hmm.
my motivations, but allowing her the freedom to be able to do it the way that she wants to do it has eliminated, just the arguments in our home.
That's a fantastic example. Yeah. And such a
So
small thing, really, when you think about it. Let her do it 3 hours later. Is it really that big of a deal? Not really in the scheme of things. Yeah.
yeah, you figure out the things that really matter. And I know that, just again, having like older teenage children now, if you would have told me this 10 years ago, I would have been like, it's being done my way or the highway.
Right.
And then
Mhm.
and then reality hits and you're like, okay, I'm slightly afraid of her. And
But it's not just fear, it's you love her and you want to maintain that relationship, just like you compromise with your spouse, right? Why wouldn't we compromise with our children? We compromise with our parents, we compromise with our siblings, we compromise with our boss and our coworkers. We can compromise with our children. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean you're not a good parent. It's actually the opposite. It means you are a good parent. And I think modeling that compromising behavior is teaching our kids how to compromise and how to negotiate, advocate for themselves, and to let other people be who they are. It's okay to tell your kid, I personally don't like this. It's uncomfortable for me, but I love you and I want to give you the freedom to do this. I just want you to know it kind of bugs me. It's good for your child to think through things through another lens. Oh, mom doesn't really like that, but she's respecting my preferences. Oh, okay. That's how you interact with people. You realize they're different from you and you compromise and you negotiate.
I would think that this type of parenting hasn't typically been modeled to our generation. And so it's just being willing to learn a new way and knowing that the outcome is only for the best of everybody. Jimmie, before we go, do you have a homeschool hack for our listeners?
I do. I was thinking back on the many mistakes I made as a homeschool parent, and here's my hack. Many of you are probably already doing this, but here's your hack. The field trip is the school day. You're done. There's no need to try to cram math in on top of the museum. Don't try to force the reading in after the picnic. Even if it's just a homeschool play date, that is your homeschool for the day. It is perfectly okay when you try to cram a field trip in with your other homeschool, it actually makes kids dread field trips because it's like they have to do double. They have to do the field trip and they still have to do their schoolwork. So throw the bookwork out on field trip days. Calm down. It's okay.
Well, that is a great hack and something that I need to remember probably on the daily, just the calm down part. Jimmie, I appreciate you coming on and talking to us and telling us about TruSpark. All of TruSpark's information, motivation, AI, and MCode will be in the show notes that you guys can click on those links and find out more. And maybe you will just have a better homeschool year once you find out how to properly motivate your children. Thank you guys for being here. Until next time, bye-bye.